Welcome back to the Quarterly Call. All content is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with an investment professional.
Always good to keep that in mind.
So today we're diving into TSMC.
Ah, yes, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
You know TSMC. Their Q4 2024 earnings call just happened January 16th, 2025.
Fresh off the press.
And why this matters is TSMC. They're really the backbone of the global semiconductor industry.
I'd say so, yeah. Their insights are really valuable for understanding where tech is going.
So anything they say kind of gives us a little peek into the future
A sneak peek.
of technology. So
Yeah.
first off, TSMC had a killer 2024, 30% revenue growth.
That's phenomenal.
That's huge. They completely blew past the rest of the foundry industry.
Especially impressive given the economic headwinds.
Yeah, and all the uncertainty everyone's been talking about, it makes you wonder what's fueling that growth.
Well, their advanced nodes, the 3nm and 5mm technologies, those are the real stars of the show. Particularly in high-performance computing, HPC. They saw a 58% year-on-year increase there.
Wow. So, like, everyone keeps saying the PC market is slowing down.
Right.
But then you see numbers like that and you think, maybe something else is going on.
Exactly. And that something else is AI. TSMC is already forecasting continued growth in the mid-20s for 2025.
That's still really strong.
And get this, they expect revenue from AI accelerators to double this year.
Wow.
Which is crazy because it already tripled in 2024.
That is wild. So hold on. What exactly are these AI accelerators? Why are they suddenly so important?
Okay, so AI accelerators, they're specialized chips designed to speed up AI tasks. Things like, training and running complex AI models.
The brains behind the AI.
Exactly. So all the buzzy stuff we've been hearing about AI, image generators, chatbots, self-driving cars, all of that relies on these powerful AI accelerators. And TSMC is the leading manufacturer.
So it's not just some abstract tech trend. This is going to change the devices we use every day, right?
Absolutely. We're way past just data centers and supercomputers now.
Yeah. AI is being integrated into everything. Smartphones, PCs, cars, home appliances, you name it.
And TSMC even predicts big growth in the smartphone sector. Not necessarily from people buying more phones, but because these AI features require more powerful chips and people will upgrade more often.
Yeah, it's not just unit sales anymore. It's the silicon content inside each phone that's constantly evolving.
Okay, so all this excitement around AI kind of makes me think about the recent U.S. export restrictions on AI chips to China.
Yeah, you flagged that in your notes.
Yeah, because it seems connected. What are your thoughts on all this?
It's a big development. These new restrictions, they specifically target advanced chips with AI applications, and it's definitely creating some uncertainty in the industry.
Yeah.
TSMC themselves said the initial impact seems manageable. They're working with customers to get the permits they need.
So they're figuring it out.
But it's the long-term implications that are really interesting.
Yeah, it's still early days.
Yeah.
So how do you see this playing out in the bigger picture? Could this reshape the whole global technology landscape? It's possible. I mean, we're already seeing companies rethink their supply chains and consider, moving manufacturing elsewhere. It's complicated, though. There's a lot of geopolitical and economic factors all tangled up in this.
Yeah, it sounds like a big mess.
And TSMC is trying to navigate it all by expanding their global manufacturing.
Yeah, they talked about that a lot in the earnings call.
They're committed to diversifying their manufacturing locations, meeting the demand for chips made outside of Taiwan, especially in the U.S. But it's a tough balancing act.
Right, because building fabs overseas, that's expensive. So why is TSMC so set on doing it? What's the strategy here?
Well, a few things are going on. First, a lot of TSMC's biggest customers are U.S.-based, and they're pushing for chip production closer to home.
Oh, so it's customer demand.
Partly. It's also about supply chain security and, national interests.
Right.
Second, the U.S. government is encouraging this shift. With the CHPS Act and other incentives, they want to boost domestic chip making.
So it's a combo of customer demand and government pressure.
Pretty much. But the question is, can TSMC replicate the same quality and efficiency in these overseas fabs?
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to know.
They claim they can. They highlighted their Arizona fab, which is already in volume production, using their N4 process.
Advanced stuff.
And they say the yields are comparable to their Taiwan fabs.
So they're proving the doubters wrong.
It seems so. But we can't ignore the financial side. Building these overseas fabs is costly. TSMC is projecting a 2–3% margin hit over the next 5 years.
So it's a trade-off. Global expansion is strategic, but costs them.
It does. It'll be interesting to see how they manage this long term.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's switch gears a bit. Something that really caught my attention in your research was TSMC's advanced packaging solutions,
Yeah.
especially their CoWoS technology. This seems crucial for AI.
It is. CoWoS stands for chip-on-wafer-on-substrate.
Catchy.
It's a way to create super complex and powerful chips, essential for the most advanced AI accelerators.
So I imagine the demand for CoWoS capacity is through the roof right now.
Absolutely. It's extremely tight, largely because of all the AI demand. But here's the thing. CoWoS isn't just for AI. TSMC hinted they're looking to use it in CPUs and server chips, too. That could be a whole new growth area for them.
So it's like this one technology could revolutionize multiple parts of the chip market. What do you think about the long-term implications of that?
It's a game changer. CoWoS lets you create chips with density and performance that was unthinkable before. Imagine taking a skyscraper and squeezing it into a single-story building, but somehow making it even more functional.
That's a great analogy.
So CoWoS means denser, more powerful chips, key for AI, but could also transform CPUs and servers.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what other applications could benefit from this. How will it change chip design? What limits will it break?
Great questions. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible, but we still need to talk about TSMC's core process technologies, starting with their 2-nanometer node.
Right, the heart of it all.
That's where the real magic happens. So you found some interesting stuff on TSMC's latest processes, and I think this is where we can really dig into how their advancements are going to affect, like your everyday life.
Okay, so let's talk 2-nanometer. This is their next big thing, right? Supposed to launch later this year.
Yeah, their 2-nanometer, or N2 tech, on track for volume production second half of 2025.
For those of us who don't design chips, what does 2-nanometer even mean? Why is it a big deal?
It's all about transistors.
Yeah.
Basically, the nanometers refer to the size of the transistors on a chip. The smaller they are, the more you can fit on a chip. More processing power, energy efficiency.
So smaller is better. Got it.
Imagine a room. You want to fit as many people in as possible. If everyone's huge, you can only fit a few. But if everyone's tiny, you can fit a whole crowd.
Okay, that makes sense. So these 2-nanometer chips, how much better are they really?
TSMC says N2 will be 10 to 15% faster at the same power. Or you can use 20 to 30% less power at the same speed. Plus, they're squeezing 15% more transistors onto each chip compared to their current N3E.
That's a pretty big jump. But wait, there's also talk about an N2P.
Right. It's an enhanced version, even better performance and power efficiency. And get this, volume production starts second half of 2026.
So like as soon as 2-nanometer comes out, they're already one step ahead.
They don't stop. But there's another twist. TSMC also unveiled a specialized process called A16, just for high-performance computing, HPC.
Why a separate process for HPC? I thought N2 was already a performance beast.
It is, but A16 is like a finely tuned instrument for a very specific purpose.
Yeah.
It uses this superpower rail technology for even denser and more efficient power delivery.
So they took N2 and made it even better for the most demanding tasks.
Exactly. The performance gains are huge. TSMC says A16 will be another 8 to 10% faster than N2P at the same power, or 15 to 20% less power at the same speed, plus another 7 to 10% increase in chip density.
Okay, so A16 is for the hardcore HPC stuff, but most applications will use N2 and N2P.
Yeah. And the fact that all three will be in volume production by late 2026, that says a lot about TSMC. Their commitment to innovation, their ability to actually deliver on these crazy roadmaps.
It's insane how fast this technology is moving. Is there even a limit? Are we hitting some kind of physical barrier?
People have been asking that for years. Moore's law, the one that predicted the exponential growth of transistors, it's been slowing down. But TSMC seems confident they can keep pushing for years to come.
I guess we'll see. But
Right.
one thing's for sure. TSMC is all about innovation. They're pouring money into R&D and new fabs in Taiwan and overseas.
They're betting on the future of computing, becoming even more demanding and complex, and they want to lead the way.
Okay, so we've covered their financial performance, their global expansion, their fancy packaging tech, and now their cutting-edge process nodes. But there's one more thing we need to talk about, especially with all the geopolitical stuff going on, and that's their supply chain, how they're keeping it secure and stable.
Yeah, that's critical these days, supply chain resilience. Especially in semiconductors, TSMC knows that.
So what are they doing to reduce the risks? Are they diversifying suppliers, building backup fabs, stick-piling materials, things like that?
It sounds like they're doing it all, working closely with suppliers to have multiple sources for critical materials, locating fabs strategically to spread the risks.
So not putting all their eggs in one basket. Smart move. But can they really achieve a truly resilient supply chain with all the uncertainty in the world?
It's tough, but they're committed to doing everything they can to ensure stability and keep things running smoothly.
Glad to hear they're taking it seriously.
Shows they're thinking long term, understanding the global landscape.
Okay, so we've talked about TSMC's amazing growth, their global ambitions, their groundbreaking tech, and their focus on supply chain. What's the biggest takeaway for you from all this?
It's the convergence of these big trends: AI exploding, manufacturing going global, chips getting smaller, faster, more efficient.
Yeah.
And TSMC's right in the middle of it all.
They're not just riding the wave, they're creating it.
Exactly. And that makes them so interesting to follow, not just for investors, but for anyone interested in the future of technology.
Right. Okay, so we've covered a lot. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about AI and how it's changing our lives.
Yeah, it gets really interesting there. All this talk about chips might seem abstract, but it all leads to changes in the devices you use.
It's not just faster phones or computers. It's a fundamental shift in how tech interacts with the world and how we interact with tech.
We're seeing AI everywhere: healthcare, transportation, finance, education, every part of our lives. And as TSMC pushes the limits of chip technology, the possibilities for AI are endless.
Exciting, but also a little scary. It's hard to predict how it all plays out.
But that's what makes it so fascinating. We're living through a tech revolution, and TSMC is one of the companies leading the charge. They're building the infrastructure for a future we can only imagine.
It's amazing to think about. It really makes you wonder what the world will be like in 10, 20 years. What will AI's role be? How will all this change society?
Those are the big questions. No easy answers. But one thing's for sure: companies like TSMC, they'll be a huge part of shaping that future. They're the ones making these advances possible.
And they're doing it in the middle of all this chaos. Geopolitical uncertainty, economic problems, crazy supply chains. It's a lot to handle.
Definitely a tightrope walk. But they have a good track record. They've always figured out how to navigate tough situations, and their focus on innovation, their deep knowledge of the industry, that gives them a real edge.
You said a few times that TSMC's insights give us a glimpse into the future of tech. What makes you say that?
It's their focus on these advanced technologies, like AI accelerators and advanced packaging. They're not just reacting to what the market wants now. They're thinking ahead. They're betting on AI continuing to grow and changing everything, from smartphones to supercomputers.
So they're not just following the trend, they're creating it.
Exactly. Pushing the boundaries. That's what makes them so exciting to watch. They're not just a chip maker, they're a tech innovator.
I totally agree. Well, I think we've covered a lot today. We've talked about TSMC's incredible financial performance, their global expansion strategy, their cutting-edge technologies, and how they're securing their supply chain. It's been a fascinating look at the world of semiconductors and what's driving the future of technology.
It really has. And it shows how important it is to stay informed about these trends, even if you're not a tech expert. Because these changes, they affect all of us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into TSMC's earnings call, what's the one big takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I'd say pay attention to the companies that aren't just talking about innovation, but actually doing it. Companies like TSMC that invest in R&D, push the limits, and anticipate what's coming next. Those are the companies that will shape the future.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, thank you so much for tuning into the Quarterly Call. For more episodes, please remember to rate and follow our show. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.